Well, here I am with Dr. Audrey Schnell, and we're talking all about self-sabotage, one of the main things that's holding a lot of people back from reaching their health goals and really goals in every area of their life, relationships, finances. I mean, in so many areas, just self-sabotage is a really big thing. And all of us do it to some degree, and some people do it a lot more than others. And let's talk about what self-sabotage is and really best strategies for breaking that. Great to be with you, Dr. Audrey.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me here. Yeah, it's the human condition. You know, it doesn't mean that sometimes we feel crazy because we end up not doing what we want to do, or even worse, doing the opposite. And then we go down the rabbit hole of what's wrong with me, when really self-sabotage is just the human condition and should really maybe be called self-survival, because it's those resistance to change, that fear. Not necessarily fear of failure or success, just fear of the unknown, fear of doing something different, that just derails people. And it creates, the more you don't do what you want to do, the more you lose self-confidence, self-trust. And so people get stuck in that kind of failure loop and have trouble getting out of it, when they really want, it's not a lack of discipline necessarily, or motivation or intelligence. It's just learning how to overcome those roadblocks that we all have. Like you said, some more than others, but we all have it somewhere. And it's actually a good thing in a way, because it says, yeah, I'm doing something new. I'm doing something important. And I just have to look at the ways I'm holding myself back, getting in my own way.
Yeah, no doubt. Now, I always talk about how health is really, it's a positive momentum cycle. So, for example, when you get a good night's sleep, you're more motivated the next day to get more movement in, to exercise, to make better, nutrition choices. But when you don't sleep well, you're more irritated, you're rushed, you're stressed, you're not thinking about getting uncomfortable through exercise, or, you're looking for some sort of stress relief from the food you're eating. So that's typically going to be more of your comfort foods, maybe more caffeine, things like that. And so when it comes to health, a lot of it is really the momentum cycle, right? One good habit it makes it easier to follow another good habit, and vice versa, right? One negative habit can oftentimes lead us down a cycle of more negative habits. And so what are some of the what's the underlying psychology with this?
Well, the easiest thing is always the easiest thing. So especially when we're tired, we are going to go the easiest route. We don't have, our brain isn't operating at full force. And I'll talk about this more as the talk goes on. But so we go back to what's easy. What's easy? Convenience food, things that I'm used to. And then, of course, that, as you said, goes into the cycle of, well, I'm not getting results, or I'm disappointed in myself, which then leads to more of the things I don't want. So sometimes people will say, well, what's the best thing to do for self-sabotage? And just kind of like you said, I say, get a good night's sleep.
Yeah.
Because it's really hard to engage your higher brain when you're tired.
I mean, there's no doubt that's like a big trigger for me. Like, I'm a really disciplined person. I like structure. Most people would look at me and be like, oh man, he lives a perfect lifestyle. But as a business owner, as a former athlete, like, I'm really driven to win in a sense, right? And there's times like in my business where like maybe I make a video and I don't feel like I did my best, where I feel like I did not win there, and I get frustrated with myself. And the biggest thing for me is, it's a reminder I'm probably a little bit tired. I need a good night's sleep. Like, I need to really focus on a good night's sleep and get out of this negative cycle.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you that everybody, including my husband, laughs at me because I'm in bed by 8 o'clock.
Good for you.
Nobody screws with my sleep. Anybody who knows me knows not to call after 7. So yeah, and like you said, what happens is we also are so harsh on ourselves sometimes when we don't do our best, that can also be self-defeating, because then we get down on ourselves, our energy lowers, our brain immediately goes to, and this gets to the rewiring idea, goes to what's wrong, what's negative. Why? Well, biologically, evolutionary wise, what's wrong will kill you. What's right will not. So we're kind of pre-programmed to look for what's going to kill me, what's wrong here. And so we get caught up in looking at what's wrong, looking at our failures, and then that just drives the negative versus focusing on what, almost like power steering. You got to force yourself to look at, okay, what went well? What's right? What am I doing well? And that just makes everything work better. Our energy is better. Our psychology is better. We need to focus on our, not ignore what needs to change, but not be, just focused on, oh, I screwed up again.
Yeah, it's a part of our brain, our reticular activating system in our brain stem, and it's designed to help keep us alive, like you mentioned. Like, for our ancestors, their stressors weren't, doing poorly on making a video, right, or something like that. But it's like their stressors were, am I going to get killed by, this wild animal, right? Or am I going to get ostracized from my tribe and from my clan for the activities that I'm doing or whatever it is. And so we're wired to perceive things that could be a threat, is what you're saying. That's stress over, basically survival over thriving, in a sense.
Exactly. And then what unfortunately separates us from the animals is after that threat is gone, the zebras don't sit around the water cooler going, I really should have done a better job of that.
Oh, yeah, you're referring to the great book, Why Zebras Don't Get Ulcers, right?
Exactly.
Ulcers, there's a stress component behind people getting ulcers.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And we do that, and we get caught up in that. And that, again, just leads to, it wears you out. I know for me, if I stay focused on what I didn't do well, it just limits me even more. I don't take new risks. I literally almost shut down. And so it's so important, I think, to focus on the wins and to have the support, the reminders to shift our focus.
Yeah, that's so good. And I know that adverse childhood experiences, these ACEs, adverse childhood experiences, can play a big role in self-sabotaging behaviors, and people that have a higher amount of adverse childhood experiences tend to have more self-sabotaging behaviors. Can you touch on that a little bit?
Sure. Well, trauma, and we have, first let me say that we have to also remember that looking back, we may look at things like, oh, my mom forgot to pick me up at daycare when I was 4. With our adult brain, doesn't sound like trauma. So we don't take it into consideration, the effect it's had. But to a 4-year-old, getting left at daycare is trauma. And those things stick with us, and they limit our options. They change how we see the world, how self-protective we are, which again goes to kind of the root of self-sabotage, which is keep me safe. I don't want, even if I want, to eat better and new foods and lose weight or, deal with my stress differently. All of that is new, is change. And change is, even if it's change we want, can be stressful. And we can avoid it because it's the unknown.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Any sort of lifestyle change, it could seem simple on paper. Like the idea of, okay, I need to start walking 10,000 steps a day. But if you're not used to doing that, just that alone, just making a habit out of that it's a mild form of stress. But if you're overwhelmed by stress already, that mild form of stress can seem like a really like just a huge load of stress.
Yeah, and I think let me know if I start to get like too far afield, but I think that the mistake sometimes we make also is not to have the support in place to help us sustain those changes, which don't seem like a lot, but life starts to happen, and what goes out the window first, sadly, are the foundations, the things that support us the most, because often there aren't immediate negative consequences. And so as humans, we focus on what is immediate and we let go, and sometimes that letting go means self-care, positive change goes out the window without this, a support group or the environment that makes it easy to do that, or other systems. So it's not just habits, it's almost like a systems and environment that will support that change. What do we know makes change successful? Accountability is a big one. Accountability and support are two of the biggest factors that lead to lasting change.
Yeah, there's no doubt. That's like, for example, if somebody's addicted to a drug,
Oh yeah.
right, or even like an alcoholic, going to a rehab center, right? They have accountability and support there, and
Right.
that's they create that foundation where there's abstinence from whatever they're addicted to, and then there's accountability and support.
And not letting the setbacks. So psychologically, there are stages of change. We change, we maintain the change, then we relapse is also, part of the natural cycle sometimes. And to know that and to just go, oh, I haven't failed. This is the stage I'm in. I can get back on track really quickly versus, I screwed up, why bother? Or, a month of being, sedate when you should be moving because, I failed, why bother? It gets discouraging.
Yeah, and that brings us to like shame and guilt,
Ugh.
because a lot of people, a lot of people's psychology is kind of warped where when they do make mistakes, right, or they relapse, or
Yeah.
they do something that they didn't want to do, right? There's certain personality types will just be like, you know what? They just kind of take it as feedback. You know what? I did that. I don't know why I did that. Didn't really help me.
Yeah.
I'm not going to do that anymore. Whereas other people, it's like this extreme shame and guilt that
Yeah.
they go through.
And that's personality that also is related to, childhood adverse events, what kind of support they have. But you're absolutely right. And then that sense of and shame will stop you. Guilt can sometimes motivate you. There are some positive pieces, but shame will shut you down.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And so what are the things we need? You talked about support and community, accountability. You talked about that, how important that is. In my head, like any sort of self-sabotage, the first step is just, in a sense, just awareness, right?
Yeah.
I would imagine that's kind of the first step. But what are the steps and strategies that you look at and that you coach people with on this?
Well, the first thing is again, awareness, and to get off the what's wrong with me track. Get off the shame track, get off the, I'm broken track, whatever it is, and look at, okay, this is data, and look at patterns. What trips me up? Look at this is just a problem to be solved, and I know where it comes from. So what do I need to put in place? What environment, what support groups? What do I have to change to make things easier for me? And also to really look at what's my response? What I talk about, because it really gets back again to that primitive brain, our survival brain. And, sometimes it's called your lizard brain. But I find that people don't really relate to that. But if I talk about your toddler brain, that 2-year-old brain inside, are you throwing a tantrum when things go wrong? Are you avoiding? Are you, ostrich in the sand? So I can use those. I have these, I'll call them archetypes of what your toddler is. What's the predominant way you self-sabotage? And understanding that, first of all, it gets rid of a lot of shame and we all know what 2-year-olds are like. So it's like, okay, this isn't surprising. It's just my 2-year-old coming out. And how do I deal with my 2-year-old?
I have a
And
4.5-year-old that comes out sometimes too. I have a 4.5-year-old daughter that she has, her share of meltdowns.
yeah, yeah. And what makes kids melt down? Being tired or being hungry?
Yeah, right.
So
Not
it,
feeling like they have control sometimes, right?
exactly, exactly. And so understanding where it comes from, and then for each archetype, like if you, let's say, so one of the archetypes I talk about is kind of the diva, the temper tantrum. Well, sometimes people will then get down on themselves for that, but recognizing that that's my go-to, and if that's my go-to, maybe I have to allow myself 60 seconds of temper tantrums, make that okay, and then distract myself by looking at what do I really want? What's the outcome I really want here? So just, getting that adult brain back online and disrupting the pattern can really help people then look at, oh, okay, I had my little temper tantrum. I know what this is, how this works. Now I'm going to get back on the path. And so really it's a way to rewire. But the way also that I look at it is that people sometimes think rewiring is really hard. Versus, okay, and there's some science to back this up, that, well, the pathways are there, they're just underused. So that sounds a lot simpler, like, oh, I just have to, use this road that I don't usually go down, that my brain doesn't really use, versus I have to do this complete rehab on my brain. And sometimes just making it easier for people makes them more likely to be able to go, okay, I can do this.
Yeah, that's good. Now, when we're talking about rewiring the brain, we're talking about basically the neurons that connect and communicate together. Mm-hmm. And we always say, neurons that fire together, wire together. So like sometimes certain experiences can trigger certain thoughts and behaviors. Mm-hmm. And that can create, and the more that we experience that, it becomes like a really, like a well-worn kind of pathway if you're going through the woods. And what we want to do is recondition some of these neural pathways to where we get more desired responses, right? More desirable emotions, more desirable behaviors, right? That's what we're talking about when we talk about rewire the brain.
Yeah, so we want to do things differently, disrupt those patterns that are almost like just self-propelling. We don't even think about it. We just immediately go into old patterns. You're right, like a groove, like a well-worn road. It's the easiest thing to do. It's familiar, it's common, it's comfortable, even if it's behavior we don't want. And that's what really throws people. Is why am I doing what I don't even want to do? Well, because that's the way you're wired yourself, and your 2-year-old is running the show right now. And we've got to get you out of that. So anything that supports doing things differently, making them easier. Again, we go back to accountability and support and learning what works for you. What we all have had enough experience, hopefully, that we have some clue about, okay, what has worked for me in the past? Yeah. Gee, I got through school even though I don't like, discipline. How did I manage that? What worked for me there? What skills can I take from there and generalize them to over here? What do I need to put in place? What has worked for me in the past is likely to work again. So making it easier for people to accomplish what seems so hard, because there wouldn't be all this talk about how to develop new habits if it was easy.
Yeah, absolutely. You have to have a desire to want to do it.
Yeah. So another thing to do is to really get in touch. This is more a psychological trick, but to really go back to, what do I value? What are my values? Do I value personal growth? Do I value taking care of business? Do I value learning? Do I value learning, being healthy? And when we do things that are in opposition to what we value, we create what we call cognitive dissonance. We're uncomfortable. Use that discomfort to your advantage. Ooh, I say I'm a healthy person. I want to be seen as a healthy person. But I'm driving through the drive-through at McDonald's. This doesn't feel good. Let me get out of the drive-through. That's really connecting the dots.
Yeah, that's good. One thing I've talked about in the past is having a why that makes you cry, right? So I think this can be really helpful too with creating that cognitive dissonance, because if your why is, well, I just want to lose weight, that may not be strong enough, right?
No.
But if your why is, I want my kids to look up to me and to be inspired by my life. I want them to see me as a healthy, strong person. I want to be there to lift my grandchildren up, or, finding some sort of why that really creates a strong emotional response in you.
Oh, yeah. And we're motivated by pain. So sometimes we're more motivated psychologically by pain than pleasure. So one strategy is to first ask yourself, what's going to happen if I don't change? If I don't get healthier, what's going to happen? Am I going to, be in a nursing home at 65 because I'm obese and can't take care of myself anymore? That should scare the out of you.
Yeah.
And
True.
And then start to go, okay, that's really scary. I don't want that to happen. Here's what I do want to have happen. And here's how I can do that. And to start where you can start, there's some of these are really big goals for people and uncomfortable. So, starting where you can start. One thing I like to say is, your goal may be out of your comfort zone, but your first step should be in your comfort zone. So you'll take it. Otherwise, you're not going to move. It's going to be too scary, even if it's something you want. So pick something that's doable to get that motivation going, to get the momentum going, and to see results. Nothing is more motivating than seeing results.
Yeah, no doubt. They say a journey of 1,000 miles begins with a footstep, right?
Yeah.
And creating that positive momentum cycle with something that's a low-hanging fruit, right? In a sense.
And people tend to not give themselves credit for what's easy. So it's important to remember to keep in mind that even if it was easy, I get credit for this. I can feel good about that. This was a win, even though it wasn't hard. It doesn't have to be hard to be a big win.
Yeah, that's so good. That's something that, my personality type, I think I naturally, innately do that. Like when I get stressed with work or something like that, sleep and actually just work helps reduce the stress. Like just feeling like I produce something, like just getting something done or right off my to-do list helps like relieve some of that stress or anxiety. And it's like, wow, it's a small win.
Because we're back in control, and that leads to a sense of safety, a sense of empowerment, agency, which again helps us feel safe and leads to more positive behaviors.
Yeah, that's so good. So let's talk about these different archetypes.
Sure.
You mentioned you've got this quiz that you're working on with the different self-sabotaging archetypes. So let's break those down.
Sure. So the first one that I talk about is the diva, which is, I want it my way and I want it now and I'm going to throw a temper tantrum. We've all seen that.
Oh, yeah.
And that can be, of course, that just takes us out of the game as well. And so allowing ourselves to, rant a little bit and then get back on track can really help. What do you do with a kid who's having a temper tantrum, distract them. Give them something
Yeah.
else to do. Remind them of what they really want. What's your goal here? The other, one of the other toddler archetypes, I call Eeyore, which is the poor me archetype. You know, nothing ever works for me. Nothing changes. I'm just destined to be a failure. And so many people can get into that when things don't go right or they fall off the wagon, to go into that poor me stance. And again, I say, go ahead, do 60 seconds of poor me, get it out of your system, and then start to look at what do I really want here? What have I accomplished in the past? And again, getting anything that gets you more into adult mode again. And for the Eeyore, it can be also reaching out for support so that they don't feel so alone, don't feel like such a loser, don't feel so isolated. There's also the ostrich, which is, if I don't see a problem, it isn't there. Avoidance, like the human condition. So again, recognizing that that's what you're doing. It's avoidance, because it doesn't always look like avoidance. I'm cleaning the house instead of going to the gym. Oh, that's a good thing. Well, maybe it isn't. Maybe you're avoiding, again, the change. So first, again, recognition. And second, taking that small first step that's doable. So that, if you're too scared to go to your doctor's appointment, remembering that, getting back to your why, I want to be healthy. I want to know what I should be doing. So let me get support here again. Another common theme that I see is what I call the Tasmanian devil. Like, let's just create a lot of chaos and drama, and I won't have to look at what I really need to look at. And, we stir up ourselves, we stir up everybody around us. This is the, well, I can't go to the gym because my dog is throwing up. And, or my foot hurts, or whatever it is. Let's just create a lot of drama and distraction. And again, knowing that is the first step, recognizing that that's my go-to, is creating a lot, because it doesn't look like drama at the start. It looks real. It looks like, oh, everybody's upset, sort of Chicken Little-ish. The sky is falling. So again, to recognize that and step back from it, get a little objective, start to ask questions. What am I upset about? What's really going on here? Is it, just a great first question is that true? Am I really as upset? Is it really as bad as I think it is? And what actually am I not looking at? Again, that sort of avoidance comes in. So these are all ways that we react to get out of having to change.
Yeah.
And the other archetype, and I think this is cultural. Actually, everybody wants to be the rebel, but the rebel is actually almost the hardest archetype to deal with, because they don't want to be told what to do, even if it's themselves telling them what to do. And so it can be really tricky to, almost the hardest one to deal with is the rebel. And one of the things the rebel has to do is go back to, well, what are my choices here? I could do this. I could do I could, go to the gym. I could sit and watch TV. I could eat pizza. What do I really want to do? And get that sense of control back, get that sense of agency back. And again, the disruption serves to, just asking those questions serves to get us out of toddler mode, get us out of that primitive brain that is just reacting to a threat.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, that's so good. So was that all of the
yeah, so there are
archetypes?
5.
So there are 5. So you said there is the diva,
The diva,
Igor, right?
Eeyore, the
Eeyore,
ostrich,
the ostrich, yep,
Tasmanian devil, and
yep,
the rebel.
and the rebel. Okay, there we go. And people can find a quiz, right? Where that asks them questions and they can help identify which one they are if they haven't already kind of figured it out in their head as you went through it.
Well, here's the interesting thing that I have found doing this for many years is that there's an obvious toddler. I'll give you myself as an example. For the longest time, I thought I was an Eeyore. I thought my go-to was just, oh, the poor me. That was the toddler I recognized. The toddler you don't recognize, which for me was the ostrich, was what was getting me in trouble. It was what I wasn't looking at, what I was really avoiding. Where was I burying my head in the sand that was causing me to not reach my goals?
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, I believe I'm a fellow ostrich.
And we, of course, all have a little bit of everything, but it's the one that is causing the most problem. And it's always the one like we don't immediately recognize. The one we know, we kind of know. It's the one that's driving the car or driving the behavior that we don't see that is what's derailing us.
Yeah, that's really good to know. So once you recognize this, you go, I guess they can find that at your website, and you get this quiz, right? Then how do you kind of walk them through what they need to do to help kind of reduce the effects of this archetype and improve their ability to accomplish their goals?
Right. So I have a little training video for each archetype that takes you through just some simple steps to get back into adult mode, to comfort. And it's not about punishing the toddler. It's recognizing the toddler. It's providing good comfort that supports you and getting out of the shame of the behavior and the steps that for each toddler help us get back on track.
And does it really look different for each of those toddlers?
Well, in theory, it's all the same. In practice, it's different. But they say in theory and practice are the same. In practice, they're not. So there are different tricks, just like for any, it's very, very common, just for any toddler. Depending on what they're doing, you might have a slightly different strategy, but it always involves getting out of toddler mode.
Yeah.
Getting our brain back online.
Yeah. And probably the way that you communicate. Like I have 4 children, and sometimes the way that I communicate, or at least the most effective way to communicate with each of them is different. I wouldn't say I always communicate like that, but the most effective way can be different for each of them because they have their own unique personality.
Exactly. And then we learn to work with our toddler. What helps, what gets me out of this. But I think also just the idea that I'm not crazy. I've just let my inner 2-year-old run the show for a while. Gets you out of that shame, which paralyzes me, paralyzes pretty much everybody, and gets you moving back in the right direction towards the health goals. And it's stressful when you start beating yourself up. It not only keeps you from getting to your goal, it creates a whole other cascade of symptoms, of pain, physical pain, emotional pain, disappointment. Disappointment is huge for kids.
Definitely.
They avoid disappointment like the plague. And that carries over into our adulthood. And we need to recognize that.
Yeah, for sure. Well, this has been a great interview because again, I could give all the best natural health strategies, but if somebody's internal wiring in their brain is, as they're taking in the content that I'm creating and all the strategies I'm telling them, if they're seeing that as, wow, that's really stressful, or, if they're, in a sense, going back to self-sabotaging behaviors as they try this, they're not going to be successful. And so you really have to unlock that first.
Yeah, and to be able to get into maintenance, because motivation or that initial excitement will only take you so far. I see this in all my friends, clients, everybody. We're great at the start, and then we start to lose momentum, or something goes wrong, or we start to sense the danger because this is new, and who will I be if I become this healthy person? And so we start the self-sabotage cycle. So it's so important to recognize that, those stages of change, are natural, and we just need to, it's not whether we'll fall off the wagon, it's just how quickly can we get back on.
Yeah.
What can we put in place that will, get us back into the healthy lifestyle, make it simple. And sometimes it's just simple, strategies, like preparing, batch cooking and having good meals in the freezer for when you don't get off work till 8 o'clock.
Yeah, exactly. Or simple things, even simpler things, like going to bed early tonight, like drinking a glass of water, right?
Yeah.
And when
Start
you're
with what
craving
you
the
can
sugar, just go and drink a glass of water instead. Like that alone will fill your stomach. You'll release ghrelin, you'll inhibit ghrelin release, which is your hunger hormone. You'll have less cravings. So just something simple like that sometimes, going out for a walk, getting out in fresh air, getting in the sun.
Stretching.
Can really start creating stretching can create a positive momentum cycle that will make the next healthy practice easier for you.
Yeah, and we want it, like I said, we want it to be easy. We want to be able to maintain. So another simple strategy is, and this works in, going back to like addiction and change. Keep it on your radar. Keep a picture on your refrigerator of, when you felt at your best, and remember that. We need these cues to constantly remember that, oh, this is what I'm going for.
Yeah, exactly. And you can link, like you were talking about, linking pain to the bad behaviors and linking positive emotions and inspiration to positive behaviors.
Yeah, looking at what we don't want, that pain will drive us more initially than, oh, I just want to be healthy. Well,
yeah,
that sounds great, but what's going to happen when you can't take care of yourself?
Not captivating enough.
Yeah.
Yeah, needs to be captivating. Needs to scare us, or really give a positive, like a strong positive emotion to us.
Absolutely.
So that's so important. Well, Dr. Audrey Schnell, this has been a wonderful interview. Again, people can find more information at audreyschnell.com. That's SCHNELL.com. They can find that self-sabotage archetype quiz there at the website. And this has been really enlightening, guys. You can really rewire your brain and break free from the pattern of self-sabotage. Any last words here for our audience, Dr. Audrey?
I will just go back to what we almost started talking about, which was get a foundation in place, which means sleep, be at your best, and don't go down the road of beating yourself up when things don't go as planned.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, give yourself grace, right? That's key.
And a lot of gold stars, even for simple stuff.
Yeah, so true. Well, this has been great. Again, guys, check out the website, audreyschnell.com for Dr. Audrey Schnell and her archetype quiz. So check that out, and we'll see you guys in a future interview. Be blessed, everybody.